So one of the biggest questions people are having right now leading up to the official information drop of the Nintendo Switch 2, basically at their April Direct, where we will get the pre-order date, the pricing, more information about the games, all that stuff, is how much will they price the Switch 2 when it comes out? How much will they launch it for? I think the pricing is going to be a huge thing here for this console, because if you take a look back at the Nintendo Switch when it came out in 2017, they released it at such an easy entry price for a lot of people. Yes, it's still expensive. Yes, not everybody can afford it, but they released it at $299, $300 if you wanted to jump in and pick up the newest Nintendo console. For a lot of people, $300 is a price point that they can stomach, that they can pick up the console on day one for. Whereas if you get higher than that, if you're getting to the prices of like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, which both launched at $500, and that's only in the United States. In other countries, it was $600 or $650, when eventually actually adjusted their prices up a little bit even more, specifically in Canada. It's a very hard pill to swallow if you're trying to jump into that next generation, at least within the first year or two, when the prices haven't changed, when there's no bundle deals or anything like that, even though this past generation there really hasn't been very much price fluctuation. But with the Nintendo Switch, $299, easy upgrade, easy price to jump into, and it makes sense for the amount of hardware that is within that console. It is portable, it has all these additional features, but the question is, what will the Switch 2 be? And we are now seeing rumors that the Switch 2 is going to be launching at $450 for the base model, and then $500 if you want to pick up the Mario Kart 9 bundle. Now, again, these are just rumors. This is what the speculation is. However, we're seeing this get spread around more and more. And the one thing that we have to admit so far with the Nintendo Switch 2, I would say comparatively to the Nintendo Switch 1, is that the leaks have been correct, at least from the hardware perspective. Basically, every leak that was shown to us before they dropped their official trailer was correct. It was the Nintendo Switch 2. The look, the dimensions, the stand, the Joy-Cons, the screen size, the overall size of the entire device itself, all of that was correct. So if you're basing it off of that, you could say maybe these prices are correct as well. And I think launching the Nintendo Switch 2, let's say at $450, is a bad move. I would say $500 is also a bad move. I would say $400 or $399 is the maximum that Nintendo would want to launch this thing at. $100 more over the last generation, but if they provide that value when they do give us that direct in April, where they're showing these are the major upgrades you're getting over your Nintendo Switch 1, I think a lot more people would be interested in picking that up. I know $50 for a lot of people out there isn't a big difference, but for others, it is the make it or break it amount as to whether they could pick the console up on day one. The reason why I say this would be a mistake is not because I wouldn't go out and purchase this day one. I'm going to go get this at $450, $500. It's just what I do. But the reality of the situation is they are planning to ship 20 million units. That's what analysts are saying, that they want to get 20 million units sold within the first year. They want to surpass the Nintendo Switch 1, which sold about 17 million units. And they're probably looking at their user base and their data and saying, we have over 140 plus million Nintendo Switches out there. There is going to be a large chunk of those, a large percentage of them that will want to upgrade on day one to get the newest model. There's probably still a lot of people who either are playing on the original Nintendo Switch, maybe are playing only on a Nintendo Switch Lite, and they've had those for years, that they can justify going out and picking up a Nintendo Switch 2 on day one. Now, then there's the other side where you have people who potentially just picked up the OLED Switch. Maybe they have the Zelda OLED Switch that came out when the Tears of the Kingdom dropped. So it's not that old. They've only had it for a couple years now, and the reality is, if the current Nintendo Switch OLED has a better screen than the Nintendo Switch 2, some people are going to be hesitant to upgrade, at least on day one, thinking that there will be an OLED coming at some point in the future. But a $450 entry price, that's US dollars. I think that is a much larger barrier of entry for a lot of people, especially if you take that and you translate that into other parts of the world, where it'll easily be over $500 in places like Canada and Australia, and in other parts where the dollar just isn't nearly as strong. And I don't know if that's going to be possible for them to actually sell 20 million units of this thing on day one if they do price it there. So that will play a major role, but the other thing that obviously will play a major role will be just the amount of games that do launch with the Nintendo Switch 2. And you have to also think about this. If they're getting huge third-party support for games that are already out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, what percentage of those people already have those games on a secondary console? Because a lot of people have the Switch, but a lot of people also have the Switch and something else to play the games that aren't available on the Nintendo Switch, a PS5 or an Xbox or PC or whatever. So if those games have already been played, will that be enticing for gamers out there that see the price of the Switch and then they see the launch lineup and basically all the games they've already played that are launching with the Switch? But we do have some more information here just in terms of like the release date and the release time frame, which this has been consistent in the leaks, and I do believe this is going to be the case. And this is obviously a large time frame that they are saying, but the rumor here is from the recent Q3 earnings for the Switch 2 to be launched between April and September of 2025. We have a tweet here from Morrow and L, and the tweet talks about the potential launch date. It says Nacon expects the Nintendo Switch 2 to launch in the first half of its 2025-2026 fiscal year, which runs from April to September 2025, and the publisher noted it already has compatible games and a full range of accessories on the way for the new Nintendo console. Not surprising. I believe there are many games that are basically ready for this thing to go. I mean, they just have to port it over to the hardware of what the Switch 2 is going to have. And if it has things like NVIDIA DLSS and they're going to be able to get these games running nicely on the lower end hardware, it's going to be a huge hit for a lot of people who are looking at their options with the current generation of consoles out there and thinking, do I buy this game on my Xbox or my PlayStation, or do I buy it on the Switch 2, knowingly, yes, it won't be the best version of the game, but it will be good enough that I can play it on my big screen TV and then I can take it with me on the go, no problem, seamlessly. And if they've already had a Nintendo Switch, they would be fans of how that entire system does work. It's going to be very interesting to see where the sales of these third-party games do land for people who own more than a single console. And one of the reasons why I think this will also be huge is that we are getting information is that the CPU on the Switch 2 will not be any sort of concern for new games and for ports. And porting PlayStation 5 games, they say, will be easier than porting PS4 games to the Nintendo Switch. This comes via Family Boards user Matt again, who is a known developer who has worked in the video game industry for a long time, providing his insight on everything here with the Switch 2 and the CPU, saying that while being part of that deviates the most from the standards set by the system overall, it is not going to be cause of concern for developers, as one making a Switch 2 game from the ground up is complaining about it. The only small complaints have come from some developers working on ports, which will apparently require a bit more CPU optimization work compared to how relatively easily graphical resources can scale to the GPU. This additional CPU optimization work, however, isn't anything that shouldn't be expected, going from a power-hungry x86 to a mobile ARM CPU. So for the time being, the system CPU shouldn't be an impediment. And as a whole, porting a PlayStation 5 game to the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be much easier than porting a PlayStation 4 game to the original Switch. So that is phenomenal news if you're somebody wondering, will third parties want to put in all of that work to get the games running on the current Nintendo Switch 2. We already kind of have the benchmark or the lower end platform, which is the Xbox Series S. And I know in the news they make it seem like the Xbox Series S is causing all of these issues, but if you really sit back and take a look at it, 99.9% of games get ported to the Series S. 99.9% games run fine on the Series S. So the Switch 2 is more than likely going to have some stuff in there, like the memory apparently will have more memory than the Series S, which will make it easier to get games onto the Switch 2. And again, if they can utilize things like NVIDIA DLSS and it gives people a good experience with some decent frame rates on there, even if it's 1080p 60, to be completely honest, I think a lot of people will be okay with it. I know people want to see 4K. I just don't know how realistic that will be with the Switch 2. If anything, it'll be upscaled 4K, and what type of NVIDIA technology can they use here if they're going to be able to do that to make the game still look and run good in a 4K to the eye, not actual native 4K. Okay, but all of these things are super interesting when it comes to the Switch 2. The price point will be huge. If they overprice it, I don't know if they're going to be able to sell those 20 million units that they are expecting to sell. But I'm going to end the video there. I just want to talk about some of this Nintendo Switch 2 news that has been dropping recently. If you do enjoy this type of content, please consider hitting the subscribe button, the like button, share the video, and let me know all your comments in the comments below.